one time, Megan and I we were out looking for something to do one night. It was one of those rare nights where I had a night off and we had a babysitter and everything, and we're out on the town, and we went to Lafayette. Nothing going on in Lafayette. We came through Crawfordsville. I think we stopped at a gas station. There was a bunch of BS going on. It's like, let's get out of this town. So we headed to Greencastle. It's like, I heard Monte Keller's playing down in Greencastle tonight. So we go down, and I don't even remember what it was on the square there.
Yeah,
you were doing the three-piece, the flexible flyer thing.
The Swizzle Stick Lounge.
Swizzle Stick Lounge, that's it.
We were in the front window.
Yes, you were.
Like the doggy.
And we walk in there, and there's a bunch of younger college crowd. You know, the younger crowd was in there. And I remember we kind of took a seat where we could because they had all the tables drugged back in the back, and they were all back there doing everything. And I'll tell you what, the performance that I witnessed for you three, you, Tony Harmless, and I'm not sure who was playing the drums, but
I don't remember.
The performance that you guys laid down that night was nothing short of spectacular. I've seen a lot of incredible performers play, but the music that you played that night was so inspired, so incredibly, it moved me. And it was blues. You guys were laying down the law on the blues, and you'd get done with the song, and I remember just being completely blown away that I just, and then I'd turn around and look, and they're all standing back there, not even paying attention.
They're trying their best to ignore us.
And there you guys were sitting there, and I'm telling you that Mr. Eric Clapton or Jimmy Page or Stevie Ray Vaughan, if they were in that audience, would have stood up and applauded you because I'm telling you, you guys really laid down the law that night, and that's
that's a good example.
That's a good example of
because
you don't have to have a crowd.
Yeah, and just because there's people there, it doesn't mean they're going to react positively to what you're doing.
Right.
And maybe that's poor salesmanship on my part, but that's why they don't let me talk on stage because I just mumble. I don't have anything to say anyway, or something.
You talk quite well with the.
Yeah, I mean that's what matters. Sing and play and do your thing, and that's good enough.
Nice.
Because that's all I'm.
That's what I respect about you. And that's one of the things that when we would sit there at the Green Street at our little table at the back with our beer, and you kind of taught me, you showed me that was the way, that it doesn't matter what the crowd's doing. Because there was a time when I'd go in and I'd play somewhere and it just wouldn't quite go over so well, and I just really beat myself up that wow, these people here didn't really care for what I did.
Yeah.
But that you didn't let that affect you.
But you like it when people. I mean, I'm very humbled by the people that do like it. But I like I said, somebody being really, really complimentary or somebody being really, really knocking it, I take it. I mean, you can't go too far one way or the other. You'll deceive yourself.
Right.
Or you'll get a false impression of your own value, which is really worthless.
That's bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
My favorite story about illustrating that was we played up the captain's table one night, and I'm tearing it up, just having a good old time and thinking, well, I rock and rolled rather well that time. Walk off stage and some drunk guy comes up and goes, man, I love the way you play them drums. And I'm like, and I said, thanks a lot, dude. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
What else you gonna say to me?
Moving right along.
Yeah. Enjoy your next beer.
Have a drink.
Enjoy your next beer.
Exactly.
Hope you like the show. But yeah, and it
So you moved through the 80s and we started getting into the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing about 92 is when Ken Clark started the open stages.
Late 91, I think it was.
Late 91,
yeah.
And he started out the
Holiday Inn.
And it lasted like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then they moved it into the Silver Dollar.
Moved into the Dollar.
Okay. And that's when I started going, was when it first started at the Dollar. And I had just kind of started picking up a guitar. Couldn't really play all that well. I knew a few chords, things like that. Me and a friend of mine sat around and jammed a little bit.
That's the way it's done.
I'd go in and I'd watch you guys, and it would just... It was totally inspiring how it happened. And then it didn't come the day when I decided, okay, I'm going to bring my guitar in, I'm going to play me a Neil Young song.
Yep.
And I couldn't make it even to the first line. I'd mess it all up and everything, and I'd stop and everything. And I remember you, Kim Clark, and Dave Will.
Yeah, David.
The three of you were kind of very, well, not kind of, you were very supportive, and it's like, that's all right, it's all right, just keep going. And exactly. Ken would be back there, keep going, don't stop, And so I kept trying to do that.
But the open stage with Ken and David at the Dollar. Now, see, I met Ken originally.
That was my next question. So yeah.
I met him back in '76 when we started the Barr band with Bruce and Keith and Huey.
Right.
When we got easy together, we practiced out on 136 West in Ken's garage.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
We set up out there in the garage, and that's where we rehearsed to get the thing going, because we learned like 35 songs in 2 practices and went and played our first gig.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
For anyone that's ever been out there that's tried to learn how to play 35 songs in 2 practices,
Yeah.
it's impressive.
Well, I said we played them. I didn't say we
So Ken, of course,
necessarily
was,
learned them.
right.
We
So-
got through them, and it got better.
Right.
But that's where I met Ken.
Okay. So Ken was part of the Leadsmen and all that in the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah, him and David
And
both.
then you met him kind of in the 70s then.
Yeah.
So.
Kind of ran into him, and yeah, I'd been aware. I'd seen those guys play. I think I saw them play out at the mall one time. But yes, I ended up going out to. Actually, I went out to the one at the Holiday Inn. And it was funny because that night I was out there, Randy King shows up of all people. I was like, oh, cool.
Right.
So there's like those roads cross all the time.
Right,
They just
right.
constantly cross.
They do.
And then the thing started at the Dollar, and that really got a lot of things going with me because I started hanging out there a lot, which they had beer. That was a hard
Sometimes
stretch.
a good thing, sometimes a bad thing.
But the playing, I mean, that was the thing. And I always thought that particular open stage was probably a template for how most of them should be.
Right. It's what I've
Ken and
modeled.
David ran it very well. Anybody that came in to play got up and played.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, hey, you're not good enough, get
Yeah,
away.
you suck, so go over there. 'Cause
Yeah.
I would have never got up to
Everybody,
play if that had been the case. I
Everybody,
wouldn't-
somebody came in, they wanted to get up, we put them on, they did it. And that was cool. And we got to where that's how the whole Dense Ground Fog thing got going, because we all
Right.
started setting in with each other.
Right.
Because Tony knew Ken from Ken playing in Greencastle, and up comes Tony.
That comes Tony, yeah.
I ended up setting in with Tony. I started playing with him. I think I started playing a little bit with him and Ken on Gazing, and then we got to where we started doing the thing with Paper Sack,
That, yeah.
where I just,
I remember
start
that.
hiccuping guitar parts
Yeah.
everywhere. Every time Tony'd stop singing, I'd throw in a riff, and that became that.
Well, Tony is just one of those eclectic. I don't know. I've
He's,
used that word before, but he is one of those players that his music and his style
Oh, he's
is
just, he's natural.
And
he's so
you
natural.
played right into that with him.
Oh, yeah.
You guys meshed so well with 2 different styles, but you meshed so really well.
It was so funny that when we got together and we decided to form a band out of all those jams and playing at the open stage. And what was funny about it was, of all the situations I've been in, I've always, like I said, I always tried to play with people I liked and got along.
Right.
Inevitably, there's egos and tension, this and that. But other than the stuff that went down later with that band, but that band, for having 4 people that wrote songs,
Right.
the most ego-free, the most pleasant working atmosphere. Because we practiced every Monday. I was on straight days at the time.
Right.
And that band was together. We were together for 5 years playing solely original music before we ever put any covers in, because we felt like we needed to get out and play more in
Right.
other venues and
And
maybe raise
unfortunately,
money.
when you're playing around in bars, you've got to play the covers.
Yeah,
That's
and we
what-
did that. And, there's all sorts of theories about why it went the way it did, but we'll leave that for another time.
Right.
But it was cool that we all wrote, and everybody, you get just as gassed about playing on somebody else's song or help arrange or throw a part in as whether you did your own song. So there's never any big head-cutting competition
Right.
about, I got to
Right.
get my song in.
Yeah. I got to get my part.
Because, he'd turn to Harmless, and he was like, they're just, it's like a song volcano.
Right.
He'd see a sign on the road on the way up, and there'd be a song about it.
Well, that's how they got you guys named that band.
Yeah.
Was Harmless came in, and I think I remember the night that happened, because he came in and he said, boy, he just kept going on and on about there was just this incredible dense ground fog all the way, And the next thing I know, I hear you guys, that's what you're calling your
Flexible
name.
Flyer was named after a sled he ran over in his garage.
I believe
Flexible Flyer.
I remember the
Oh,
Flexible
yeah.
Flyer.
Oh, yeah.
I used to have
Yeah.
one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So when you guys are writing, when you wrote all those, you've got 4 different people that are writing. Was it one of those situations where everybody kind of wrote and then came together and said, okay, here's what I got. Let's try this.
We'd sit around, we'd just sit around and we'd play the stuff and we started doing songs. And everybody came in initially with some original stuff that they'd had around and we started playing on those. But then we'd actually be writing as the thing went on. And somebody would come in, like Tony come in, like, hey, I got this one. And he'd just play it out, just play a few chords and sing it. Ken would jump in with the harmonies because he was always, real good at finding the harmonies. And, we'd all start playing. And it's like at the open stage, to back up there, is that David went and got a bass, because he always brought the 335 and we had acoustics and this and that, and Ken had the piano. Well, then David got a bass so that, okay, we can have bass players. Well, then all of us started playing, one of us would be playing bass, because that's the thing with Dense Ground Fog. We never had a bass player per se.
No, you didn't.
We just passed it around. We just a bunch of frustrated bass players and guitar players.
Right. But
it worked out really cool because that was the neat part of the diversity too. Is that sometimes you'd have, you had however many combinations. You'd have David and Tony on guitar, me on bass. You'd have me and Tony on guitar and David on bass. You'd have David and me on guitar.
Yeah.
And
it's cool to have that flexibility.
Oh yeah.
To be with those kind of talented people that you can play off each other that way.
Oh yeah,
that's cool. And you guys got a pretty good following with with the whole Dense Ground Fog project.
Very much so.
I know people would just come in and they'd always be requesting their favorites. Like mine, I was on Paper Sack. A Spaceship was actually my favorite.
Yeah.
And I think I played that one off the. Yeah.
Yeah, Tony.
That was Tony, and I played that here on the program a few weeks ago, and the thing that I always liked about it was, at first I thought, Tony, can't you just sing on key and then or not on key but on rhythm?
Yeah.
When you do the spaceship, you were like,
oh yeah,
get it out there, But as I listened to the song, I realized the brilliance behind it. Mm-hmm. And that he was doing that on purpose.
Oh yeah.
It was meant to be that way because if you listen to the context of the song, what he's singing about, the way he's doing it, and then it opened up a whole new world for me, because you don't have to be perfect. In fact, sometimes you have to try not to be.
Yeah, I think
in order to
me, Tony, of all of us in that band, vocally, was the most unencumbered by influence.
Yes.
Because everybody has their influences, and the influences have a tendency sometimes to show up. Mm-hmm. You smooth those edges out after a while, because everybody's got their influences and the things that really, here's the guy that I like to emulate, or here's the feeling I'm after. But he was always just so horribly original. I mean, just like, it really grabbed you. I mean, it was really neat. It was just fun.
I enjoyed listening to him, and you guys all together, because of that, you got it. Everybody else got you. The whole band got it and understood how those intricacies of not playing things just perfect is what you're after.
Oh yeah,
and that is a very unique writing style, and I don't think I've heard too many out there that have actually written that way and performed that way. So. My hat's off to Tony. I'm hoping to get an interview with him one day. So
that'd be a good one.
That would. It would be crazy. I wouldn't know where to go. When I think of him, I think, but he reminded me of one of the Marx Brothers, is what it was.
Oh.
With the little things that were coming out and just the wacky off the wall type stuff that he would do, and he'd come up with. Paper Sack. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Tie me to the railroad track.
Tie me to the railroad track. Yeah. Where does he come up with it?
Oh,
and,
it's
and so.